Okay.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the third United Nations South Asia Forum on Business and Human Rights. This is the session titled Towards an Inclusive, Participatory, and Meaningful NAP Development Process. I'm Adish Gurung from Q Design, and I will be your technical facilitator today. The chat function is enabled for this session, so if you have any questions for the speakers, please use the chat box. Please note that the session today is recorded and live streamed on YouTube. If you have any questions about Zoom or technical assistance, please feel free to raise your hand or drop a message into the chat box. I will now hand over to Mr. Tek Tamata. Tek, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, and good morning, namaste to everyone, and respected speakers and the participants. Before I go to the formal start of this session, let me highlight few things. Firstly, just to give you background, Nepal has been progressing a lot in terms of advancing the agenda of business and human rights, and I'm pleased to share with you that the government has formed a task force and has been responsible to finalize it. Likewise, the national human rights institutions have also been actively to kind of impart information about this issue. Likewise, in terms of normative framework, we have a lot of legal provisions and scattered policies, plan of actions, to be very honest, in place. However, there are issues and challenges as well. I'm sure that the speakers would highlight those during their presentations. With that, let me highlight the modus operandi of these sessions as I informally shared with the speakers. We have like 4 speakers on behalf of government and also representing civil society, human rights defenders. And at the same time, unfortunately, we do not have the representative from National Human Rights Institution due to their other commitment. But we are very much happy to see Mona Madam, who is also on board to represent the human rights communities in Nepal. He is the former like commissioner for National Human Rights Commission. She has also the experience working with other commissions like National Women's Commission. She was acting chair and worked as the commissioner. So we're happy to see her. Likewise, on behalf of civil society, representing youth, we have Naran Khatiwada, who will be highlighting more on the mandates of the youth, role, responsibility of the youth towards again advancing this agenda on business human rights. And we have Lokhari sir, he represents Ministry of Law and Justice, and we'll highlighting more on the process on business human rights action plan, which is being finalized. And more importantly, his presentation would also focus on issue challenges so far that the task force and other responsive ministries have been witnessing. And finally, as I mentioned, we have the senior most speaker on behalf of government, Joint Secretary, Mr. Kosal sir, Kosal Chandra Subedi, who has years of experience, looking after human rights, and he looks after the human rights, rule of law, and human rights international treaties in Prime Minister's office. And he would be, highlighting the overall progress so far, and overall issue challenges, and more importantly, normative frameworks. I'm sure that he would also highlight the unique, characteristics and at the same time provisions of the Constitution in regard to democratic freedoms, in regard to public, private partnership, and more importantly, the roadmap, state roadmap on different, issues and areas linked with business human rights. With that, going directly to the speakers, I am requesting Kosal sir to make a presentation. Your time would be 7 minutes, sir. Yeah, over to you, Kosal sir.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, Tek sir. Mohana Madam.
Sir, you are on mute. We cannot hear you. Oily, sir. Yes,
Just,
yes, we can hear you now. Yeah.
I'm trying to share the screen.
Okay.
But yes. Are you
Fine, sir.
hearing?
Not yet.
Despite
Otherwise, can I request Monica ji to share
We
it out?
can hear you fine, sir. Please go ahead.
please, yes.
Hazuli garden, Monica ji.
Yes, thank you, Teksha, and all participants joining in this pre-session of the third UN South Asian Forum on Business and Human Rights, Nepal country session. The theme of this program is towards an inclusive, participatory and meaningful NAP development process. I'll be focusing on the NAP development progress. So far we have met. Thank you for providing this opportunity to me. The general background so far we understand is that states have a primary responsibility to protect, promote and fulfill human rights. That is universally recognized principle. In the private sector, in addition to the traditional functions, they are now carrying out various type of functions that were traditionally been carried out by states as well. Therefore, the activities being carried out by business have a necessary implication on human rights. Therefore, the international community have paid a significant amount of their attention to develop guiding principles on business and human rights. Nepal is also a party to the international conventions, particularly the 7 core conventions on human rights. And being a party to these human rights conventions, Nepal is obliged to fulfill these conventions obligations. Therefore, taking into account of these backgrounds, government of Nepal considers that the guiding principles are important tool for making responsible to the business sector as well. If we take into account of the constitutional framework that directly guides us, that is committed to the rule of law, civil liberties, and fundamental rights and freedoms that is ensured by the Constitution. And the Constitution also ensures the proportional and inclusive participation in the state, all spheres of state aspects, state bodies or mechanisms. And the present Constitution also has incorporated almost all the rights that Nepal has accepted or committed in international forum. Particularly the right to life with dignity is also ensured by the Constitution. For that, right to equality and non-discrimination and right against untouchability and discrimination, that is also cardinal principles in our Constitution. The discrimination based on the untouchability is also very severely restricted, criminalized by the penal code also, and the special legislation also. Particularly the Dalit communities have been deprived since long as a matter of untouchability and discrimination, so that there is separate article dealing with the matters of Dalits' rights. Similarly, right to labor, right to clean environment, also ensured by our constitution. Moreover, the rights of consumer, rights of women, rights of child, and compensation to the victims if these rights are violated, that is also ensured by the constitutions. Similarly, the directive principles and policies also have specified the roles of public and private sector in state affairs. And the directive principles, even though these principles are not may not be invoked in the courts, but there is a separate monitoring mechanism that is monitored by the parliament and the government, particularly Prime Minister of the government of Nepal submits annual report to the president, and through president that report is discussed in the parliament, so that there is a monitoring mechanism. Similarly, there are many sectoral laws. Particularly, I would like to focus on the Labor Act that ensures the rights of the laborers, and Environment Protection, Environment Act and regulation that are also important matters in relation to business and human rights. And Consumer Rights Act, there is separate legislation. Similarly, Sexual Harassment Control Act, Workplace Act, and Domestic Violence Control and Punishment Act, Children Act, Victim Protection Act, Penal Code and Penal Procedure Codes that are relevant, directly or indirectly relevant with the protection of the human rights of the people, including private sector. So that our constitutional and legal framework is well in advance to make the business sector responsible in relation to human rights. In October 2020, the government of Nepal provisioned business and human rights as one of the activities under the 5th National Human Rights Action Plan, demonstrating that its commitment to implement the UN guiding principles on business and human rights. It provides that the separate action plan will be developed to implement the UN guiding principles on business and human rights. For that, it provided that an interministerial drafting committee shall be formed by the Ministry of Labor, Employment and Social Security. And accordingly, the ministry also constituted the drafting committee in 2021. And that drafting committee, in cooperation with the UNDP A to J project, technical assistance of the UNDP A to J project, they have prepared preliminary draft of the National Action Plan on Business and Human Rights in November 2021. And the draft was shared for the consultation with the stakeholders in all provinces. And the discussion is still underway among the stakeholders to finalize it. So far, I know they have completed 7 rounds of discussions in provincial levels. And they will have to conduct a final discussion in central level. We hope the action plan will be finalized in 2022. Yes, next slide. The drafting committee has prepared NAP in a normative form, in descriptive forms. It has identified areas of priorities like rights of labor, right to environment and indigenous people's rights, consumer rights, women's rights, child rights, gender equality, non-discrimination, that these areas are the priority areas of the government of Nepal. So that these priorities are very important. That directly relates with the business community also. It has also proposed to retire of monitoring mechanisms in federal, provincial, and local level as well. And there are independent oversight mechanisms that is constitutionally mandated. Okay, sir. National Human Rights Commission and other constitutional bodies and parliamentary committees, civil society are also there to see the implementation of these action plans also. So that in future, the drafting committee will have to identify the precise activities for intervention in each area priority, the responsible agencies, supporting agency, time frame, if possible required budget, and monitoring indicators will have to be developed. I just contacted my friend from Ministry of Law and Justice who is involved in the drafting principle, and my colleague also Sardar Rizal. She informed me that they have identified 45 indicators as separate activities to be intervened as areas of intervention, areas of activities to be included in the action plan. Official consent feedback from the responsible agencies and finalization of the draft that is yet to be obtained, and the submission of the draft action plan to the Council of Ministers by the Ministry of Labour, Employment and Social Security will submit the action plan to the Cabinet, and Council of the Minister Cabinet will consider the matter. The Cabinet Committee may deliberate on the action plan, and the Council of Ministers will adopt, and the implementation action plan will come into operation. Nepal is a right track. There was COVID for 2 years, so that we could not go ahead. However, now we hope that we are moving in good track, and the drafting committee will finalize this soon. And my colleague Lokari ji and my colleague from the OPMCM Sardar Rizal will also shed light on this matter also, if anything left. Thank you very much for providing these important opportunities, and I'm happy to be part of this process. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Kausal sir. Thank you very much highlighting the key normative frameworks, including domestic laws and draft action plan so far. And it is good to like hear that draft action plan seems very comprehensive, addressing almost all the areas of business human rights, not only the traditional ones, more focused on environmental right, but also the collective and the group rights, which are very much important to be looked into from the lens of business human rights. Thank you once again. So now I would like to request Lokari sir, and my request would be to try to kind of conclude within time frame. That is one thing. Second thing is there are many things already highlighted by causal source. So let us try not to duplicate those. Thank you, sir. Over to you, Logar sir.
Okay, thank you, sir. Respected sir, respected Joint Secretary, Urgent Secretary Kausal sir, and distinguished all participants. Of course, our Joint Secretary has already highlighted almost issues which I'm trying to share with you. However, I will try to not repeat on that issues which has already been become into the discussions. So generally, the government of Nepal has ratified 24 of international human rights instruments, and including 7 big conventions, and National Human Rights Action Plan enacted since 2021 BS. I mean that the government of Nepal ratified the international human rights instrument, and based on this, for the implementations of these instruments, the government of Nepal has trying to the effective implementations by enacting or by formulating the National Human Rights Action Plan. So currently, the fifth 5-year National Plan of Actions come into the force, and 3.2.5 of National Plan of Actions of Human Rights has stated to formulate the National Plan of Action, National Action Plan on the Business and Human Rights. A draft National Action Plan on Business and Human Rights. I just want to share how it is going to be the proceed for the finalizing or enacting the National Plan of Actions. Ministry of Labor assigned to the formulate the National Plan of Actions. And I mean that the National Action Plan of Human Rights has assigned to the Labor Ministry to formulate the National Plan of Actions on the Business and Human Rights. A task force formed representing the concerned ministries, including Ministry of Logistics and Parliament Affairs and private sectors. Technical expertise procedures of preliminary draft has already been. The provincial consultations held in, the 7 provincial consultation meetings has already been done, and the national consultation meeting awaited. A draft identified a total 45 actions relating to the business and human rights. As being a task force member of Ministry of Logistics and Parliament, mobilized the support of A to Z, the project to prepare the National Plan of Actions. And then the FNCCI is the zone which is the leading private sector agencies, was the coordinator, was co-organizer to the discussions program in the provincial level as well. And then the stakeholders, basically our today's discussions, the inclusion and participations of the concerned stakeholders on the National Plan of Actions on Business and Human Rights. How we are going to proceed? These stakeholders were covering or were engaging in the discussions program on the draft NAP, which can build up to take the ownership from their side. So such stakeholders is like that the business community, industrialist, consumer, civil society, representative of various trade unions, organizations, and women, Dalit, indigenous communities, and backward communities also they considered on the discussion program. And thank you. If you have any queries, I will share with you.
Thank you, Lokari sir. Thank you so much. And it's very encouraging to kind of hear and see that you have been extensively engaging with all the stakeholders relevant on this issue of business human rights, and more importantly, you have also highlighted the provisions of other international human rights instruments, because sometimes we do not relatively interpret the international arena of human rights. UNGP is just a guideline, but at the same time, you have other human rights obligations shared by different treaties, and Nepal has been a part of it. So, like, even if you don't have like specific convention on business human rights, you still can utilize and cast the provisions of other instruments out for the promotion and protection of the rights on business human rights. That's a good point, and also good to see that like you are supposed to make all the layers of government accountable towards again looking into the issue of business human rights. Just for other external participants, let me reinforce that we have the federal structures in Nepal, and we have 761 governments in place, and all the government authorities, including of course FNCCI and other stakeholders, would have more roles and mandates towards again advancing the business and human rights. Thank you so much again. And now I would like to request Mohana madam. As I already introduced, she has been human rights lawyer at the moment of time, but to have experience and has the experience of like working with national human rights institutions, including National Women Commission and National Human Rights Commission. So madam, over to you.
Thank you so much to all. Dear fellow panelists, UNDP Nepal representative and a UN representative from the other country, even the business and Human Rights Forum delegates. Good morning to you all from Nepal. I have some slide presentation here, and I also got a inside discussion with the various experts working in this business and human rights sector worldwide. And this is a good opportunity for me. I just want to start beginning from some context setting, which I think I appreciate Ministry's presentation as well. And I'm happy and wish this National Action Plan will go in widely. So let me begin with this context, how Nepal is moving towards. Is actually rapid increasing in the economic and commercial activities in last 2-3 decades is the very deep desire for Nepal. Actually, we have to understand this nature of business changing. Large companies, not in a worldwide, here in Nepal as well, taking over and replacing small businesses, vendors. An example, Hongsu Cement, etc. This is one example I have been given here. Business owners, vendor losing their regular and small businesses, which we need to consider here. Governments prioritizing larger scale infrastructure. We have no choice to forget these things. Larger scale infrastructure, which is a very known. Hydropower, road expansion, manufacturing, for example, just past MCC, fast track, and a few mega airport, which is going to be international airport in Nepal. The major things which I have brought here, 4 points in my slide: land acquisition, displacement, losing of the natural resources, loss of employment and business opportunity by vendors. So I have here a question as well for the Ministry of Prime Minister Office, Ministry of Labor, even UN agencies as well. Who is going to be accountable for this, or how this is going to be facilitated in future? Imported of the climate changes, irregular rainfall, which is going to cause for in a last year rainy season, many farmers lost their harvesting. Before the harvesting time, they collapsed everything what they grown. Land erosion is another problem. Pandemic causing the price rising, food and commodities, all contributing to the poverty, marginalization, violation of the human rights of the affected people. Very critical effect on the marginalized community like Dalits, landless people, poor, and also marginalized community. Why I'm emphasizing here, these are the long-waited, to address issues, which is still on a debate. Can I go for next slide? So challenges of BRI and NHR NP, our NAP. BHRI collective, a new discourse in Nepal, which is just started, I think, before the COVID in 2019. Low level of the awareness on the BHRI. I have been engaged various stakeholder discussion. So I found that there is a very lack of information among the stakeholders. So, low priorities for the government and business companies. BHR versus development discourse. Attempts to present a BHR as an obstacle for the development. It might be. So this is the bigger challenges because lots of laws previously prepared by the government and the proposed plan was challenged in the Supreme Court, which is ongoing debate in the Supreme Court Constitutional Bench as well. I'm the one of the petitioner on the natural resources which came under the last budget declaration, last budget. The down paying BHR issues as a normal or natural part of the development, prioritizing the issues of the affected people. Can I move the last slide? Okay. In 2018, a multi-sectoral dialogue organized by, I'm just giving the few reference during the NHRC period, NHRC rightly identified the challenges, which is a lack of effective laws and policies on BHR, which I heard recent representation from the Ministry of Prime Minister and then other ministry. So I think I'm happy as well. Complex and lack of clarity on the compensation payment. Lack of community consultation by the companies and the government as well. Challenges in the identifying the real stakeholder and no assessment of long-term effect of the community's dispute. So this is the very important actually. I have a few recommendations. Before jumping on the recommendation, I just want to put the one.
I can't hear her. She's still there. Basandaji, can you hear her?
Looks like we have lost her, teacher.
Yeah, maybe latest. I don't know. Okay. Yes, it seems that she disappeared because she's out of town. She's in countryside, and I'm sure that internet is not that much good. But she highlighted a lot of good thing, including the issue challenges that private sectors that like the citizens have been encountering with, and at the private sectors as well. She was highlighting few of the issues, for example, lack of grievance handling mechanism, the due diligence, and more importantly, she was also mentioning about the discourse on balancing development from human rights point of view, development versus human development. So that is what like the key point that she was trying to highlight. And at the same time, the role of NHRI, some of the interventions that Human Rights Commission already undertook, in regard to again business and the human rights. And I could also, share with you that like UNDP has been working with national human rights institutions as well, not only with the government, but also with national human rights institutions to monitor the rights from business and the human rights point of view. Thank you again, Mohana madam. Now we have Naranji. And okay, Haju, Haju, madam. Okay.
I
2 minutes.
No, I'm not going to take a lot of time. Just what I want to highlight here, because this is what I receive comment from the stakeholder. That's why I want to put one stakeholder. It mean government bodies actually. When I was in a discussion, intensive discussion with the government authorities at the local level, provincial level, this is an extraordinary opportunity Nepal is getting now. We are shifting from the central to the provincial level, and this is a call delegating and not only power, sharing the power as well. And this is the beauty of the it's a shared ruled. So the BHR is very important for us. And in a past experience, why the Nepalis fail on implementing treaties, rule and regulation, why it is a challenge? Because they are not on board. And this is a good opportunity that Nepal and then a government, all authorities have to bring on board all the 7,000 plus local bodies and 7 provinces people. This is the great opportunity for us to send them down to earth. Thank you so much for giving the opportunity.
Thank you, madam. Thank you once again. And it's a good point that you touched upon, about the role again of the local and province government. Province government in particular has extensive role, towards development. And again, while talking about development, you need to really take care of the issues on business human rights. Thank you once again. Now, Narayan sir, over to you. And as I introduced already, he represents the civil society and working with the youths in Nepal. And again, on sustainable development goals, business human rights, these are the areas where youth can play a significant role. Over to you. I try to kind of finish within time again. Thank you.
Okay. First of all, I would like to thank to UNDP for providing me the opportunity to speak or to put some of the views in relation to business and human rights. And I would like to request to Monaji to share the slide. And next slide, please. Next. Okay. I have very little time, so I don't want to go into the detail, but at the global context, if you see that, as you all know that right now, it is said that the state has the responsibility to protect, promote, and respect the human rights. But if you see the evidences throughout the world that most of the human rights are being violated by the market, which is being led by the business sector. Before 1976, there was no any debate. I mean to say that there was no tendency to link the business and human rights to have the discourses. But when the OECD declared the kind of the guidelines to make the business sector responsible, from that time period, the discourse to link the business and human rights into the one streams, emerged throughout the world. And that, tendency was, got finalized when the Human Rights Council adopted the UN guiding principle in 2011 to make the business sector responsible. So at the global level, what I would like to share that, that was in fact the departure time, meaning that before it there was no tendency to make the business sector into responsible, but from that from that document, there is debate in the international levels that how to make the business sector into responsible. From that perspective, civil society should be very curious to make the business sector responsible. First, I would like to share from the civil society perspective that thing, and second, I just don't want to go into the detail about the national action plan because that has been already shared. So request to Monica to go into the next slide, please. Okay, and talking about the challenges, whatever we are seeing in terms of making the business sector responsible. The first challenge, what I see from the civil society perspective, that there is the trust deficit between the civil society organization, government, and the business sector. This is the first challenge that is creating the hindrance to make the business sector human rights friendly. And second challenge is what I see that the challenge is ownership. As our previous speakers already told that the National Action Plan on Business and Human Rights is being discussed in the various provinces. But I don't know that whether all the sectors which are concerned with these sectors have been on board or not. So if it is not board in terms of making these plans, that does not create the ownership. So that can be also the challenges in terms of implementing the ENAP. And third, like if you see that there is the nexus between the politician, bureaucrats, and the business sectors. which is also creating the hurdles to make the business sector responsible. And third, challenges, what I see that there is still limited awareness on the civil society and on the mass level about the importance of the business and human rights. That is also the challenge. And next challenge, if you see that in Nepal, like there is particularly two ideological front. One believes that everything should be given to the market, and on the other end there is another trend which believes that everything should be controlled by the state. So that types of extremism is also creating a kind of the problem in Nepal. So this is the another challenges. And next challenges, what we have, that we have done a lot of things, but still we have not we don't have the culture of the institutionalization. And because of that institutionalization, transparency and accountability, it is also creating the problem. And another challenge is what we have, that limited access to justice system. Still, most of the people in Nepal have no good faith in the justice system. That is also creating the challenge, which could be called as one of the challenges in terms of making the business sector responsible. And next challenge is what we see, that still in the business sector there is no culture of due diligence. So that is also challenges we can identify. And if you see in a very subtle way, that still there is the dominance of the multinational company in Nepal. And we are also seeing from the media that some of the multinational companies still are not paying the tax to the government of Nepal. So that is also the challenges from the point of view of civil society perspective. And next challenge is, like, we have a lot of marginalization and vulnerability problem. That is also creating the challenges. Next slide, please. Next slide. Within 2 to 3 minutes, I will finish. Like along with the challenge, we have a lot of opportunities. We have federal constitutions, and which has ensured the fundamental rights. If it is implemented, it can achieve the aspirations of ours. And along with it, we have a lot of commitment from the government of Nepal to make the business sector responsible. Third, still if the business sector is made responsible, that can be very fruitful to make the harmonious relation between the nature and human beings. And we have the large group of civil society organizations, youth groups and others which can be mobilized to make the business sector responsible. And final slide, please.
Please.
West forward. First of all, still there is a lot of confusion about the business and human rights. So the human rights friendly. Second, marginalized and vulnerable communities should be engaged in this process. And third, still we don't have a robust monitoring mechanism, so it should be promoted. And another thing, we have the large section of the young group which could be mobilized by empowering them to make the human rights friendly business sectors. And another way forward could be like strengthening the partnership and coordination collaboration between the government agencies, civil society organizations, agencies, and business sector. And another thing what we can do, like still there is no academic evidences, so that we can do the advocacy. So advocacy so the study and research could be the another sector. And finally, still we have a lot of laws and policy, but they have not implemented. So enforcing the laws and rules could be the way forward. And finally, there is still public discourse necessary, and advocacy and lobbying should be.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Naranji. Thank you so much. A lot of things that you were trying to highlight, but basically, 2 points I would really, kind of take into account while finalizing the plan of action, since we have joint secretaries from, Prime Minister Office and even the Ministry of Law and Justice are present here. The content part is important, but more important is about process. The process has to be extensive, participatory, and consultative. while finalizing plan of action, that will help us to have kind of collective ownership, and ownership is important for the implementation. And regarding, the challenges, you have, rightly mentioned that the awareness, the lack of empowerment, and at the same time, responsiveness among the private sectors. These are, of course, common problem and challenges that we have been witnessing. Lastly, thank you so much, the speakers again. And now this is a time for discussion, and we don't have much time though, 15 minutes. So I have already requested, to raise the hand. We have 2 colleagues already raised the hand, and we've received a few kind of concerns, not concern, I would say, but the experience sharing from the colleagues from Philippines. Yes, Philippines would be one of the countries that we could learn from. So maybe Pushpaji first, then Basantaji for the question. Kala ho, to indicate garden palla.
Namaste, Fixer.
Hazur, please.
Namaste, everyone. So I have 2 questions. The first one is whether the NLP that we have envisioned have the measures.
Pusha madam, can you? Yeah, I cannot hear you well. Aligadi ठुलो सले भन्नुपर्छ क्या? हजुर, please. Sorry.
भयो?
हजुर, अलिकति ठुलो सले हजुर.
सुन्दैछ?
सुनिहाल्छ, सुन्न त, तर अलि मधुरो आवाज आयो. हुन्छ हजुर, continue please.
So I have 2 questions. So the NLP that we have envisioned, does it have any kind of measures to expand access to legal utilities? First question. And the second question is, with regards to the initiation of NAP, did you start with national baseline assessment, or how?
I don't know if other participants are hearing you, but it's still. हजुरले नभए chatमा, you may send your questions, via chat as well.
I'll write in the chat.
Yeah, sorry for that. Sorry. Maybe Basantaji. Basantaji, over to you.
Yes, thank you, Tegji. So I just wanted to share some of the reflection that I have been engaged during this the consultation process, and probably to complement Joint Secretary Kaushal Chandra Subedi. So when we were in the consultation, I felt like the government and we the stakeholder, so-called stakeholder, we just understand that business and human right is only human right issues and trade union and labor kind of issues. So and the representation and the issues raised during this was sometime in the beginning workshop, first 1 or 2 workshop, we were focused on that. Then we realized that it is not only within the labor. There are a number of issues, and as Joint Secretary already highlighted, number of sectorial legislations. And I would like to compliment even more than that what he has said. We have Black Marketing Act, probably it comes under Consumer Protection. We have Essential Service Operation Act. We have Competition Promotion Related Act. We have number of legislation related to land, forestries, all natural resources, which are directly or indirectly related with the business operation. So as the Business and Human Rights Action Plan probably is not a new, we are probably, compiling all these already established legislation, standardize them to make that the business sector is responsible toward the human right, and business sector will get opportunity to flourish if they kind of comply with the human rights standards and human rights due diligence. So when we are developing these 45 actions that has been identified by the draft action plan, draft kind of list of the actions. So it also probably includes the reward and punishment or kind of sanction for the private sector to if they have kind of human right compliance mechanism, due diligence is fulfilled, and that should be made, considered as a standard for operating business. So this is what I would like to share now.
Thank you, Basanji. Thank you so much. And we have like a couple of questions from Pushpa, madam. And there are 2, specific questions. One is about whether the draft action plan has a provision of legal remedy, that is the key pillar of UNGP. That is one thing. The second thing is about the baseline survey? Was there any assessment conducted before you embark upon, drafting the plan of action on business human rights? Both of the questions are very pertinent. And Pushpa Madam, you are involved in drafting the curricula, I think, on business human rights, and it's us to supported you, and it's been working very well. Thank you very much. Now, yes, for Philippine colleagues has appreciated the undertaking of the government, and sorry that my thinking was like Philippines already had plan of action, but anyway, good that you like the discourse initiated in Nepal on this important area. Thank you very much. So who else? I don't see the hand raised. Ajay? Okay, there is one more question, right?
If Dipendra sir want to compliment on from Ministry of Labor, if he is here.
Okay, Dipendra sir, just a moment. If there are any question, then I would come back to you. We have like 3-4 minutes though. Colleagues, you are requested to kind of not only put forth the question, but also the compliment, if there are any experiences that you would really wanted to offer. For us, this is a time to really, have the international experiences and learnings, because we are still in the drafting process. The draft which is already in place is a zero draft, I would say. We have, had to do a lot. Yeah.
Sabrina
Okay,
ji,
there is one
Sabrina.
more question from Sabrina. Okay, Sabrina ji. Sabrina.
Hi, namaste. I'm a Nepali lawyer, but I work at an international law firm. So my question is related to whether the private sector in Nepal has been socialized into this language of BHR, right? Like, how are they aware that there's this thing called BHR that needs to be taken into account while operating? As far as I know, from our international perspective, the private sector is more comfortable speaking the language of ESG, right? Environmental, social governance, those kinds of concerns. So I'd love to understand if the private sector in Nepal has been receptive to this BHR agenda and what is the relationship like with the private sector?
A very good question. I'm sure that Kausal sir will respond it, and we would also be happy to complement. Okay, so other colleagues, we have good level of diversity, women colleagues seem very much vocal. It's okay, additional. If not, okay. Sir, sorry if I pronounce it.
Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you, Tiki. So this is Shahriar from Bangladesh. So thank you very much for nice presentation and all panelists. So I'm just curious to know the experience, like how actually private sector can react, or what the experience for engaging private sector to bringing in this business and human rights issues. So what challenges actually faced during the drafting of the NAP? Thank you very much.
Again, it's a very important question, because like they are the one who should implement and kind of comply with the plan of action. So we'll come back to you, hopefully, colleagues. Okay, so now I saw few responses, I would say, from Manujji, who is focusing more on the beneficiaries, the marginalized communities, to be looked into by private sectors and at the same time government. Very good remark. And yeah, from India, Javed, yes. Yeah, it's just appreciated and acknowledged the remarks made by the colleagues. Yeah, so if there is no question, I would request Kausal sir to respond, because many of the questions are related to plan of action, the role of private sectors, and the process itself. So hopefully it would be good that you would cover the responses, and of course, if there are other remaining and the speakers are interested, you may complement, but we don't have much time though. Yeah, Kausal sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Very good presentations have been made by Lokari sir, Mohana madam, Narayanji, and the questions raised by our colleagues are very valid and important. Thank you very much, Mohana Madam. Particularly, Mohana Madam, she highlighted some of the issues that we don't disagree. We don't disagree what she had to put forward. That's a very good, important thing. Just one remark in our presentation is that large companies taking over small companies, particularly the Hongxi Cement. Yes, Hongxi Cement is a large factory, but the demand of the cement demand is fulfilled only 60%, that is produced in Nepal only. Still, we are importing from India, so that the company, Hongxi Cement, has not displaced other cement factories, small cement factories, because still we are importing 40-30% from outside foreign country, from India. So that just that remark. Other things, I agree with land acquisition displacement problem, particularly that is important in relation to business and human rights. The government's present government is considering that adequate compensation and resettlement mechanism has to be administered rigorously, so that these problems may be addressed. Impact of climate change is a validly raised issue that we agree. Thank you, Mohana Madam. And the challenges she raised, that's also very agreeable. Naranji also highlighted the development of the.
Sir, अनि त्यो दुईटा क्वेशन थियो नि सर, एउटा legal remedy अनि अर्को चाहिँ private sector has, please.
Okay, thank you, sir. That's way forward. He also highlighted the awareness mobilization of youth. That's fine. Experience sharing from Philippines also. Puspa Madam, Basanta sir, yes. Basanta sir has added some of the acts that I have not mentioned. I agree with those acts. There are other acts also he mentioned, and more acts. For example, contractors act. There is a separate act for the builders, and Public Procurement Act, like that. There are many legislations that cover some of the aspects of business and human rights. Supreme, whether the private sector is aware or socialized or not, this is important issue, and during the framing of this action plan, the FNCCI is co-sponsoring these consultation programs in all provinces, so that private sectors are taken into confidence, and all the indicators they have concurred in relation to the intervention. One thing that I wanted to say is that our constitution and legislations are very convergent with the guiding principles with human business and means, because the liable person who violates the human right or the legal obligation arises here, and the adequate compensation is to be provided to the respective victims, and the remedy of the climate or the injury sustained has to be made by that private sector, so that compensation, I mean the prohibition of the act contrary to the legal provision or protection that have a bearing of human rights impact, which is criminalized, prohibited, and violation of that act ensures compensation and punishment or imprisonment as well. so that our legal provision is very in advance, just to make our community, business sector that they have obligation, legal obligation, that is already created by law. If there is a violation, they will be punished and a compensation is ensured. Having said these few words, my friend Saddar Rizal would like to add something.
Just a few minutes. I will end up in just 1 minute. It's okay, it's
time is running out. Yep.
Yeah, okay, fine. Hello, namaste. This is Shraddha. Just to share my experience as being one of the member of the committee of the drafting team who is drafting this Business and Human Rights Action Plan. Well, I was there in Province 2 to have the consultation with the team and to share the experience. And I hope that this will also answer or address the queries that has been raised in this presentation. Is that we had the representation from various business sector, ranging from large industry to small industry. And we really had a good consultation. We did receive a very important and the issue that the employee or the laborer has been facing, or that they wanted us to incorporate in the action plan. So the business sector, they did took this action plan as a positive aspect and gave us a very good feedback. And this is what I want to share. And we hope that this will give us, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Time is already over. And thank you, all these speakers and Shraddha madam. And in regard to, like private sector, we do have a lot of kind of responses. Maybe, during the session UN forum, we would have chance to, interact with other country and participants, presented, will be presenting there. Now maybe like, polling, Monica ji, you wanted to, we have already shared the, this polling thing, na? Monica ji?
Hi, Teekji. So we have already shared the polls. We just request everyone to quickly fill that up, and we will end the poll shortly. Thanks, Teekji.
Okay. So, colleagues, like your feedbacks would really be important for us. Okay. So Monica ji will be sharing the outcomes of the polling, or how do we proceed?
Yes, so I am sharing the results now.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, Monica ji. We are primarily accountable for business human rights. Okay, the government 12%, private sector 8%. Oh, sorry, government 0%, private sector 8%, public 0%. All the above. Okay, 92%. And who is the direct responsible ministry to look after business human rights? Share garnu ta Monica ji, मैले गर्न सक्दिनँ. Monica ji. त्यो तल सरेन के तपाईले गर्दिनु म गर्दिनु.
So who is the direct responsible ministry to look after the business and human rights? Well, we have all of the above for 75% of your answers. Ministry of Commerce and Industry 17%, and Ministry of Law, Justice and Parliamentary Affairs 8%. For question number 3, in your view, what are key roles and responsibilities of the National Human Rights Institution in regard to advancing business and human rights in Nepal? We have all of the above and monitoring both at 42%. And in review, what would be the role of private sector on business and human rights? We have all of the above. So that's promotion, protection, remedy. And for number 5, in your view, what is the most relevant international framework on business and human rights? We have United Nations Guideline Principles at 83%. And the feedback on today's session, it was very good by 50%. Thank you.
Okay. So thank you so much for all the colleagues participated, for this polling as well. And it seems that all the sectors, all the wings, all the authorities of the government will have equal responsibilities and mandate to look after business human rights. It's not only single ministry or say single authority. Rather, all the actors should work together for the protection and promotion of this agenda. That's a very good point. And yes, thank you so much, speakers and participants. Time is already over, so I'm not sure how to.
Yeah, quickly before we wrap up, could we request everyone to turn their videos on?
Okay. Yeah. Sararu ekso video dekhanu paryo. Yes. Pushpaji, all the colleagues. If possible, if you don't mind, because in Nepal penal code has a provision, unless and until you have a permission, you cannot take the picture. I know, sir. Kausal, sir. It's a punishable crime both.
Public forum मात्रै त्यस्तो हुँदैन सर.
Public forum मिल्छ त्यही त. The exceptional provision is there always. You have the space for interpretation. Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, bye.
Thank you,
Kausal, sir. Thank you, Kausal, sir. Thank you so much for your leadership. भयो picture भयो त भयो होला नि हैन मनिका
जी thank you so much.
Thank you so much. धन्यवाद. See you soon. Bye. Bye.